Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for tuning in as always. Really appreciate it. Shout out to all the subscribers. Gratitude to anybody new. This video is going to be called Raging Bull. Now, Jai Opetaia has got a fight coming up in May. He's fighting this Italian guy, and this Italian guy's nickname is the Red Bull, right? I forget his last name, Squeo. I'll get into the fight a little bit later on. Jai Opetaia himself is a raging lunatic.
Wow.
So I tried to tie it in, you know, this channel, the way I'm moving is I'm trying to put themes on each video, do a bit of music, talk about science. We're also going to talk about Tim Tszyu and Tszyu VS Spencer. I'll timestamp that, but let's get into this intro, which is the Raging Bull theme music that I tried to recreate and put a few pictures with Opetaia and his opponent. Let's go.
Boxing's honestly like it's like a religion to me. You know what I mean? Like it's just I've grown up in the sport. I've fought people all over the world. It's like another language to me. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's just a way to beat everyone, and I feel like because I've done it for my whole life, I just feel like I got to find out that way to beat him, and I can do it. You know what I mean? I got to sort of execute what's right and wrong, minimal mistakes, and then I personally feel like I can just beat everyone if I fight smart.
You never got me down, Ray. You hear me? Never got me down.
Boxing. All right, as always grateful for you guys tuning in. I hope everyone is well. It's been a minute since I've made a video on Opetaia. You know, I'm trying to drop maybe a video every week now going forward, but you know, I'm trying to do more artistic stuff. So if you don't see me for a bit, I'll be back. Do you know what I mean? I'm just trying to get a bit more creative and a bit more, you know, I can make Opetaia videos every single week, to be honest with you, but I'm trying to, you know, branch out a bit more. So if you don't see me, like I said, I'll be back. But let's talk about, you know, this fight coming up. Obviously, you know, it's a bit of a disappointing name. I'd never heard of the guy. I'll pull up some clips of him. He looks very slow. He's 34 years old. He's got 9 knockouts in 17 fights, something like that. He looks like, you know, lambs to the slaughter, to be honest with you. But you know, Opetaia mentioned in an interview, look, he doesn't do the matchmaking. He doesn't pick the fights. He's openly called out everyone in the division, you know, for the longest time.
You know, what we're really chasing these unification fights hard. You know, I'm having to be a bit more blunt and start calling them out now, which it's not really my style, but fucking hell, you know, what else can I do? You know, I need to make it clear that we are ready for these fights. So the sooner they happen, the better.
Seeking out belts. He really wants belts. He wants the unification fights. He wants undisputed. And then he wants to move up to heavyweight. This is no secret. You know, he's, you know, Billum Smith, they swerved him probably. Ramirez, I don't know what's going on with that fight. That's the obvious one. Hopefully, I was hoping that would be next. But, you know, obviously he's just won the belts too. And I can't imagine that De La Hoya's too keen on putting him in with Opetaia, because let's be honest, you're risking a career beating. Let's be honest. And I thought about that because I was like, if you look at the fights he's had, and he's like basically almost either not ended their career, but had some impact on their career negatively. For example, Jordan Thompson, I always talk about him, you know, I'm like, poor guy, he took a massive beating, but he hasn't fought since. You know, and you could say the same about Zorro, who has actually fought since, but Ellis Zorro, who got wiped out badly in that one round in Saudi, he fought again, he got stopped again. And, you know, you do wonder when fighters do take such punishment, you know, it's so hard to come back from. David Nainka, we'll see how he does and how he comes back. He's a bit of a warrior. Hopefully his comeback will be fine, but, you know, he took a bit of a beating as well. Marius Bouris is a different animal, because, well, he's also 40 years old. He might retire, but that's not, I don't think that's down to Opetaia, even though Opetaia hurt him a couple times, several times. I mean, they hurt each other. You know, they were just breaking each other's bones for 24 rounds. But, you know, it's a dangerous fight for this Italian guy. It's a really bizarre matchup because it is, you know, an obscure opponent that is getting thrown in there to, you know, a dangerous opponent, really. But my question is, I'm going to get onto Jai Opetaia's power scientifically. We're going to talk about some equations and stuff like that. I always like to bring in a bit of science into, you know, a bit of art, which was the music in the beginning, which, you know, I tried to recreate the, you know, one way around not playing, you know, people's music. I'll try to play my own sometimes, but if it's a creative moment like that, I'll just try to recreate the actual strings, which weren't quite quite on point. They were a bit harsher, mine were. But I just, you know, I was like, that was the art part, you know, and usually the art part is music, and then the science part is me talking about punches. I've been doing a lot of research on the actual punch, you know, just the scientific aspects of it, and I want those three things, obviously mainly boxing, but you know, I want to just get a bit more creative and just, you know, just express myself a little bit, you know, have a little bit of a different channel, and just a unique channel, stay in my own lane, and just, you know, push forward the things that I love. And I do love the science in boxing, because Opetaia's punching power, I mean, it's a marvel, if that's even a word. It's marvelous. It's just like something to marvel at, if that might be the right English. It is speed and physical power too. He's not like a physical specimen, but he is. But where am I going with this? He is physical, right? He's strong, but he's explosive too. But I'm saying when he's not like the most physical, but he has got both, really. But it's his technique and this is just my opinions, of course, you know what I mean. You're welcome to your own. Leave. I'd love to hear from anyone that wants to elaborate on his punching technique, because it's his technique that is really the beautiful aspect of this. His balance is almost perfect. His footwork is sensational. His muscle coordination, right, his alignment of the kinetic chain, which is the movement and the flow of energy from your foot all the way to the tip of your fist. I've spoken about this many times.
If you look at this clip I'm showing you, where the kinetic chain starts in Opetaia's back foot, this is where the energy starts and it travels through his body. But because his balance and his technique and his shape is so good, the chain is allowed to flow through easier and more efficiently through to the top half of his body, straight to the end of his fist.
I've made loads of short videos, actually. Maybe I'll put one in right now as I'm talking, just to highlight it, because this is so important to understand from if you are a boxer, even if you're not, just to how the energy is brought through. Because if that Newton's cradle, if the balls are a little bit off, right?
If there's too much space between the balls, or they collide at different angles, energy is lost.
And they clatter on the side, meaning your technique is a little bit off, maybe your foot's a little to the side, your balance isn't good, then the cradle doesn't run through properly. But if it is, that cradle hits the fourth one, right? And that the middle balls in the middle, 2 to 5, that's the middle part of your body, and that's the transferring all the energy through. And the fifth ball, or the sixth, or however many on there, is the end, the Newton's cradle, you know, that ball that you know, I always make the same joke, is already a bad Christmas gift that someone gives to you, and you're like, oh man, thanks a lot. But it's like the alignment of that has to be right, and each one of those balls is basically a part of your body that the energy transfers through. And if those balls aren't lined up, and if your body isn't lined up, the power doesn't transfer through as well. But with he's rarely out of position. And his punch selection, his punch variation is out of control. You know, he's really developed that right hook as well. David Nyanka, I didn't think there was going to be an uppercut in there, because I thought Nyanka would keep it tall and be a bit smart, but he didn't do any of that. And actually, he brought himself into Opetaia's uppercut, and it only takes, you know, a split second, beautiful timing, caught him with the right uppercut. But right before that, Nyanka brought his head right towards Opetaia's uppercut, which is basically, that's suicide boxing. And if you talk about his fight with Claudio Squeo, that is just an uppercut waiting to happen, because he's a shorter fighter, right? Shorter fighters, well, I don't know how short he is compared to Opetaia, but that is just uppercut city right there, because his head is lower, right? And that's why when I said Nyanka, I was like, if he fights tall, those uppercuts probably shouldn't get anywhere near him, but he didn't do any of that. Well, for the most part. But yeah, strange matchup. I hope it's not too one-sided, or I can't picture this guy doing anything really. The question is, what's he going to do with the training camps? Now, I was watching an interesting video. Opetaia just did an interview, like 45 minutes. It was quite a good. I haven't watched all of it yet, but I forget the guy's name. I'll leave the link in the description. I'm going to leave a couple of clips from that because, you know, he opens up. He's very honest, very candid. You know, geezer. Jai Opetaia, you know, I love watching him talk because he just talks passionately from the heart. And he was talking about his training camp, and you know, they go hard. And I was like, you know, do you go hard for somebody like this because you don't want to not go hard, because mentally, when you don't go hard, it can affect you, I think.
Oh, when we train. You know what I mean? Like, we don't go through the motions. Like, we chase pain. You know what I mean? Like, you got to train smart when you're training hard like that. Otherwise, your body, you know what I mean? You need to be on top of your recovery. I'm lucky I got good people around me, you know, like I got a great performance coach, Mark Matthew. I got my boxing coach, Taps. I got my assistant coach, Carey. And as a team, you know, they, you know, if it's too early and they see me going too hard, they give me a week, you know, or go fishing for a week or something, you know.
And so, but you know, he's got a team around him when they like pull him back when they need to, and like, you know, take a week off and go fishing, because he's the kind of guy. Actually, I want to say this really quickly. I meant to bring this in the opening. His greatest asset could be his greatest weakness. I'll get onto that in a minute. But with regards to the training camp, you do think to yourself, what kind of a camp are they going to do? You know, you don't want to like go all out for, you know, you want to save. I feel like you want to save those camps. Do you know what I mean? But you can still go hard in camp, but get technical. He's always looking to work on stuff. He worked on that right hook. He spoke about that pre-fight, post-fight. And, you know, that came to fruition big time. And you look at the leverage he gets on that right hook. He puts everything into it. And, you know, back to what I was saying, his greatest asset, one of his greatest assets is his spirit. He has got an unbelievable spirit. That's why I love covering him. And, you know, anyone with a majorly fierce spirit is somebody that I'll watch intensely, because I'm so enamored by that. It is amazing. But that could be his biggest downfall. Not in this fight, but when he gets into a rougher competition or bigger men, especially in the heavyweight division, right? And, you know, someone's poking him a little bit and he wants to meet that bigger, stronger man, essentially, maybe with that spirited energy. Like, you've got to be smart with that, you know, because you could start cracking dudes that can take your punch. It's going to take more out of you. And then where you got to learn, I think, to control that spirit. So much easier said than done. But that, to me, is something you should really be working on, just my opinion. Because, as I said, it is an amazing asset. And you look at Bud, actually, Bud Crawford's a good example of this, because he was an animal and he used to fight with this. And then I think the Mean Machine fight really kind of, because he wanted to just fight him. He's much stronger than him. Like, let's say much, that's not true. He was as strong as Bud, if not maybe a little bit stronger. He definitely hurt him. I know he put him over. It wasn't counted, but he definitely got his glove touched the canvas. But he just fought completely the wrong fight. And even before that, against Gamboa, you know, he got caught up in wars, and he wanted that dog to really come out. But since then, he's controlled that side of him, and he's been way more smarter. He's always smart. And I know Opetaia can be smart too, but I think it's the spirit that takes over too much, you know. And rightfully so, sometimes it can win you fights. And Mike Tyson's spoken about that in the past. It's like your ferocity can help or hinder you, you know. And I know exactly what they mean by that, because you can start to turn it on and get vicious with somebody, or you can do that and it can backfire if someone can meet your viciousness and you're not being smart about it, and then you burn in energy and all of a sudden you're tired and this person's still there. Psychologically, it's like, oh my God. But using that jab, using his footwork, using angles, using beautiful combinations like he does, but like with different variations, his variety of punches is what's quite marvelous too. But I'm talking down the line now, should and when he meet you know, a real heavyweight in the game that can take his shots. But I'm just rambling a little bit, actually, to be honest with you. Let's talk about Tim Tszyu and Jai Spencer, right? I was going to make a separate video on this called Snakes and Ladders, which again, back to the theme, the art theme I wanted to do, and I had this whole thing with the music line up with like snakes and ladders, and I was just like, that's going to take me about 3 days. So I'll just talk about the fight in here. And snakes and ladders meaning the game of boxing, you know, you roll the dice. You obviously are in control of your fate to some degree, because you can, you know, obviously if it doesn't go to the scorecards, you can take your opponent out. But that, depending on what happens in that, you could hit a snake, go down the ladder, or go down the game, or, you know, you win, you go up. That's usually how boxing works, unless your name is Sebastian Fundora when you get knocked out by Brian Mendoza and then end up fighting for a world title. And then, or your name's Errol Spence and you get put in for a world title shots as well after losing. But, you know, generally speaking, it is a game of snakes and ladders. And once again, Tim Tszyu has, you know, he's got the same, I guess, problem. It's a good problem to have, to have such a fearsome spirit, but, you know, having a bit of difficulty controlling it. And that is actually a good example of how you got yourself into trouble by not controlling your spirit. And that's, again, he's got the similar his greatest strength was his greatest weakness. And there was other factors involved in that, but it was his ego and his you know, I don't know. Yeah, it was a lot to underestimate. I've spoke about this loads of times. I'm not going to go over that again, but with background. But, you know, controlling your spirit and fighting smart is an absolute must at this point. You know, he's got an interesting fighter in front of him. Jai Spencer hasn't particularly looked good since the loss against Jesus Ramos, where he got beaten up basically and stopped in the 7th and ran out the ring really. Tough fighter, that Ramos. You know, he's definitely still going to be in the mix at 154 and give a lot of the top guys trouble. I really think that. And then Spencer had a couple more fights after that, and then he had another fight with I forget the guy's name, Hernandez.
And it wouldn't be surprising to know whether this fight was dependent on this round.
Who was actually a sparring partner for Tim Tszyu. And a lot of people thought Hernandez won that fight. I was watching a bit of it earlier. I hadn't watched all of it to score it like that. I was just looking for moments and highlights and stuff just so I can show you some stuff. And I'll talk about Spencer's opportunities in a minute. But you read the comments. A lot of people thought Spencer lost that fight, right? And that guy was 9-0, fairly obscure fighter. But to me, Jai Spencer hasn't looked the same spiritually, really, like since the loss. So when I mean that, I'm like, when he came out for PBC and he was like this young, fresh, talented kid, right? He's got flashy hands and decorated amateur, came out sparking guys out. You can look really good against lesser opposition, and they really built him up quite well. And, you know, he's got credentials too. Seems like a nice kid as well. And, you know, he's certainly got skills. His speed is best attribute for sure.
Guy in the ring and did not mention. Oh, big right hand.
Excitable, hard.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right hand stacked with the explosion. And from Spencer. So,
that's because he had pins in his right hand.
Yeah, right. I was able to weather that.
That even puts more.
Oh, he's wobbled. He's right hand after the hook.
He likes to throw one punches, like slick little shoot counter uppercuts, you know.
Right hand from Hernandez again. Oh, big uppercut from Spencer. That was the shot that he was hoping for.
He does leave that left hand really low, you know, which is, I'll get on to what Tim Tszyu can do in a minute. Because these videos aren't going to be detailed fight breakdowns like I used to. I really want to focus on the stuff I was talking about, you know what I mean? But I'll do a little bit. I'm sure you're not tuning in for the art and the science really, but you know, that's part of me, do you know what I mean? That's why I do it. But you know, in terms of Spencer, look, his opportunities early on outboxing Tim Tszyu and getting some early rounds in, I think, are his best bet. And you know, once the fight gets on a little bit, I see Spencer, he kind of doesn't like the pressure so much, you know. I think his speed, as I said, and his quick, sharp counter-punching ability will be his main assets. Interesting, see how Tim Tszyu's going to be spiritually, mentally. I'm sure he'll be fine mentally, but those shots that he took, I mean, his chin isn't going to go up from that, is it? His chin and his neurological, I'm not saying it's gone down, it might have, because that he took some heavy artillery.
The legs are gone. I do not know how he's still standing up.
He's down.
Tszyu still pressuring, but he's not
Oh, he got dropped with that left hook.
You know, he took a beating in that fight. He really did. And as I said, he's a tough guy, and he's the kind of person that will not be deterred by that whatsoever. It's just what internal damage has been done. Because, as I said, it doesn't go up. You know, and I've to speak about my personal situations before. It's just from sparring in America, and I took some beatings, and my chin was never the same. You know, I'm not comparing myself to him at all, completely not. I'm just saying I know from first hand that when you do take some beatings, your chin goes down a little bit. Like, that's me though. You know, I'm not a warrior like him, but that's just an interesting thing. How does the if your neurological isn't there, like, you know, it's going to affect, you know, how you proceed. I don't normally open up about, you know, my short-lived amateur career, but, you know, I feel like, you know, I can speak on it because I definitely went through that. I definitely went from having a chin to not having a chin. But, you know, we'll see how he deals with it. Fortunately, Joey Spencer isn't really a puncher. A lot of people have built him up to be like a little bit of power puncher. I don't think he is. I think he's got a little bit of snap. I think it's the speed that catches people off, but it's his speed and his counter-punching ability, I think, are the most things you should watch out for, because really and truly, once Tim Tszyu closes that distance, puts the pressure on and uses his defense, fights smarter as you should do. Don't rush in, you know, take your time, use your jab. I know he's been posting videos saying back to basics and hitting the jab on the bag. And by the way, while I'm here, anyone that's interested in actually learning boxing, I have got another channel, which is why I've been so busy, but I teach about throwing jabs, and I've got beginners in the gym, and I'm trying to help people, you know, and it's a channel for beginners. So if you're looking to learn boxing and you want to support me or support this channel, go and support the other channel. I'll leave the link up here. I'll leave a little video that I made at the end of this. Actually, it's on strength and conditioning, which is not a beginner video at all. It was somebody requested it. That was a subscriber, because I got to 1,000 subs, and I was very grateful. And I just said, give me a request, and he requested that, and I was like, oh, it's not really a beginner topic, but I did it anyway. And yeah, anyway. But there's loads of stuff on punching. But back to the fight. I'll expect Tim Tszyu to get his basics down, get a nice jab going, use his defense, which is there. And actually against Backham in the first round, I pull up a couple of clips. He was just ducking under that right hand nicely, using his concentration.
Way you saw that right hand counter shot.
The top of his head.
Keeping his eye on it, because doing offense and defense at the same time is actually quite difficult. Focus on what you're doing, keep your steady pace, and keep your eyes on that flashy jab. And Spencer likes to come down with like an overhand right a little bit, which is perfect, because Tszyu likes to duck under those shots, you know. I think I can see him missing that. And just don't get too greedy, don't get too overconfident. And, you know, just take your time, be patient, be calculated like you were before in the Mendoza fight, in the Harrison fight. You know, he took his time. Harrison's probably got better boxing ability than Joey Spencer, really. So he should be dealing with Spencer, really and truly. I mean, if he can't beat Joey Spencer, and this is no disrespect to him whatsoever, because, you know, he was a decent fighter, certainly in the amateurs. And, you know, leading up to the Jesus Ramos fight, he was definitely in the mix as a top prospect. But Tim Tszyu should be beating this guy. You know, I think he'd probably get a late stoppage, probably just wear him down a little bit and do what Ramos did, but a little bit later. Again, a lot of it's going to depend on his well, I'm going to say mentality, but I think he'll be fine. I think he just try not to get too deterred if Spencer does come out sharp and does come out crisp, countering you. You know, just stay with the program, stay with the pressure, get that jab going. I would like to see an educated jab from Tim Tszyu. You know, he's got an alright jab. It could be a lot better. When I mean that, like educated jab, you know, change up the tempo, jab to the body, jab to the head, get your head off the line a little bit, move your head a little bit, you know, feint the jab, come in with a jab, you know, just get that education going with that lead hand. That's another level I think he could probably work on personally. But look, I hope we get a good fight. I hope both fighters come out the ring healthy, and you know they live to fight another day, and we get a good fight for the fans. And that's all we can ask for. Shout out to the warriors that fight. Thank you to anyone that watched. I appreciate it, especially up till now. And thanks to anyone that's, you know, still hanging around and waited for me to make a video. There's a couple of you have reached out in the comments, and I appreciate it. You know, I will be back. I've been so busy right now. It's just really quite crazy. And these videos, I take a bit more time with them. So, you know, I just like to, I'm trying to put out more quality, not quantity. So, you know, hopefully it makes sense. But that's it from me. It's Tuesday now. I'll probably get this out tomorrow or Wednesday because there's quite a bit of editing to do. But yeah, be well. All right, peace, love, I'm out.
Hi, morning everyone. I hope you're doing well today. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Shout out to all the subscribers. Gratitude to anybody new. Welcome along. This video is going to be about strength and conditioning. This channel is for beginners, but this is going to be quite an advanced video, but I'm going to tie it in and give the beginners plenty of advice on how to generate power.
Because the power comes from the bite that you get from the feet with the ground. The ground is your best friend.
What to do with your feet, what type of bags you're looking to use, and ultimately how to improve your strength and conditioning. This is going to be quite an old school video as well. Shout out to James Anderson, he's a subscriber of the channel. Thank you very much. He posed a question to me because I opened up the floor, being gracious for people that were subscribed to the channel for 1,000 subs, and thank you to anyone that is. And I said, you know, get your requests in. And he requested this video pertaining to, you know, talking about, you know, power punches in the sport of boxing that use the bag stationary to either improve power or, you know, basically where do they get the power from? I interpreted it as that, but to me that was strength and conditioning. And I'm going to give you some excerpts from legendary trainers that talk about strength and conditioning, hitting the bag.
You're doing boxing, and as long as you're hitting the bag, that's the strength. Our strength and conditioning is based on hitting the bag.
And he also mentioned about the different types of bags, swinging bags, stationary bags. And I went in the gym and I was hitting all these types of bags again for this video to show you guys the difference and what it can do for your strength. Let's go.
Boxing.